Welcome back to the deep dive. We've got a stack of reports on the desk today that paint a pretty stressful picture of the modern retail boardroom.
Yeah, that's one way to put it. Stressful is an understatement.
Right. And if you're tuning in from the C-suite or the operations floor, I want you to mentally transport yourself to a very specific, very uncomfortable moment.
The
The
postmortem.
post-launch postmortem. Exactly. We're talking about that window maybe 3 to 4 weeks after a major product drop.
Which is usually right when the reality sets in.
The visceral feeling of it, right?
Yeah.
Because leading up to launch, the energy is electric. You've seen the samples. The marketing team has just blown the budget on incredible visuals.
The hype is real.
The hype is so real, and the inventory is actually physically in the building, which honestly is a miracle in itself these days. And the website is live. It feels like a guaranteed win.
It's the peak potential moment. On paper, everything is perfect.
But then the weeks roll by. The initial spike flattens out. The sell-through report hits your inbox. And the numbers are, well, they're soft. Yeah. They aren't terrible, maybe, but they aren't where they need to be.
Yeah.
And that is exactly when the finger-pointing begins in the boardroom.
The usual suspects phase, I like to call it.
Right. Marketing targeted the wrong demographic, or
Hey.
the price point was $10 too high. Allocation sent the wrong sizes to the wrong doors.
Yeah.
We love to dissect those variables because they're tangible. You can look at a spreadsheet and blame a specific number.
But the research we're diving into today, specifically this white paper titled, "Your Product Isn't the Problem, Your Product Knowledge Is." It suggests that while we're all busy arguing about pricing elasticity, we are completely ignoring the elephant in the room. Or rather, the elephant on the sales floor.
And that's our mission today, to really uncover the invisible friction that's actually killing the sale. Because if the product is great and the marketing drove the traffic like it was supposed to, what actually went wrong in that final 3 feet between the customer and the register?
Right. And the core argument here is that the failure isn't strategic, it's execution. Specifically, it's the widening gap between product availability, meaning having the physical box in the store, and associate understanding.
Having the knowledge to actually sell what's inside the box.
Exactly.
And that's the hook for everyone listening.
Mhm.
If you're scratching your head right now about a launch that theoretically should have worked but just didn't, the problem might not be what you're selling. It might be the lag time and how fast your team truly understood it.
And to be clear here, we aren't talking about whether they eventually figure it out, like month 2 or 3. We are talking about whether they understood it at 10:00 a.m. on launch day. That speed differential, that gap, is where the money is burning.
So let's break that down, because the retail landscape has completely shifted. We aren't just dealing with a new season anymore. We're dealing with a completely different species of customer.
The asymmetric knowledge problem.
Yes. Unpack that for me, because that phrase stood out.
Well, traditionally, if you think about it, the sales associate held the keys to the castle. If you wanted to know if a jacket was waterproof or, what the thread count was, you had to ask them. They were the expert. You were the novice.
Now, I walk in holding a smartphone that has more data than their entire point-of-sale system.
Exactly. The source points out that today's customer doesn't just browse anymore. They research. They've read the entire product page. They've watched 3 unboxing videos on TikTok before they even left their house.
They've checked Reddit for reviews.
Right. And they've compared the specs against your 2 biggest competitors. They walk through your doors totally pre-educated.
There's a term the research uses here that I found really interesting: the ingredient story.
Yes, this is fascinating. Customers aren't just looking for a moisturizer or a running shoe. They're looking for highly specific technical attributes. They know the exact percentage of niacinamide in the serum, or they know the drop offset in millimeters on the sneaker.
So let's play that out on the floor. You have a customer who spent 2 hours obsessing over these details online. They walk in, they're ready to buy, but they have one specific technical question just to confirm their bias.
And they ask the associate who, let's be totally honest here, might have unboxed that exact item maybe 4 hours ago.
And if that associate hesitates?
The sale is dead. The research actually calls this the associate disadvantage. It's a massive vulnerability for modern retail. If the staff member cannot match the customer's level of granular detail immediately, the power dynamic just flips. The customer realizes, oh, I know more than you do.
And once that realization hits, the trust just evaporates. You're not a trusted advisor anymore. You're just the person who holds the key to the fitting room.
It's actually worse than that. You become an obstacle. The customer pulls out their phone to fact-check you right in front of your face.
Ouch.
Yeah, you've lost the human connection, which, let's remind ourselves, is the entire point of physical retail existing in the first place.
Now, I can hear a skeptical executive listening to this and saying, well, that's just a training issue, just train them better. But the source argues it's not actually about the quality of the training. It's about physics. It's about speed.
Right, it's the velocity of the market versus the velocity of learning and development, or L&D.
Talk to me about this acceleration of retail, because it definitely feels faster, but how do we actually quantify that?
Think about the retail calendar. 10, maybe 15 years ago, you had 4 hard seasons. Spring, summer, fall, holiday. You had months to prep the field. The merchandising directives were sent out weeks in advance. It was predictable.
Now we have drops.
Exactly.
We have limited editions. We have unexpected collaborations that just launch on a random Tuesday.
Continuous updates. And omni-channel alignment means that if the website updates the copy at 9:00 a.m. to say, now made with 100% recycled materials, the associate in the physical store needs to know that at 9:01 a.m.
But the mechanism for teaching that associate, that really hasn't changed at all, has it?
No, not at all. This is the L&D lag. The source contrasts the hyperspeed of today's supply chain with the incredibly slow, linear process of corporate training. Just think about what it takes to get a standard training module out to the field.
I've lived this. It's a relay race. Someone writes the content, then brand marketing has to review it to make sure the tone is perfectly aligned. Then legal has to review to make sure we aren't making any false claims.
Then it goes to a designer to make it look pretty.
Right. Then it's uploaded to some clunky learning management system. Then it's assigned. And then finally, the store manager has to actually find time in a totally packed schedule for the associate to go into the back room and take it.
And by the time that entire relay race is finished, the product has already been on the floor for 3 weeks.
Exactly. We have optimized the supply chain to get a shirt from a factory halfway across the world to a shelf in Chicago in absolute record time. But the speed to knowledge the actual manual on how to sell that shirt is completely stuck in the slow lane. We are delivering the product way faster than the instructions.
And that brings us to the first 30 days. The research flags this specific window as the danger zone.
Why specifically 30 days? Is that just an arbitrary number?
No, it's financial. In retail, the first 30 days are where your full price sell-through happens. That is when the marketing spend is actively driving traffic. That's when the newness factor is at its absolute peak.
Right. Because if you don't sell it in the first month, you're usually looking at markdowns later to clear the inventory. So you're just bleeding margin.
Precisely. If your team spends that first 30 days learning on the fly, basically figuring out the features by reading the hang tags alongside the customers, you have completely wasted the most profitable window of that product's entire life cycle.
It's not just about knowing the price, though. The force really emphasizes the need for depth during this window.
Depth is the difference between an associate saying, it's a nice jacket, and saying, this jacket uses a 3-layer membrane that breathes while actively keeping you dry.
Telling a natural story.
Yes. If I ask an associate, why is this $500, and they just recite a spec sheet, I'm bored. But if they give me a story, a real reason, I'm interested. But telling a natural story requires confidence. You cannot improvise a good story if you're unsure of the basic facts.
And this is where the consequences listed in the report get a bit painful to read. It says, conversations stay shallow. Objections become harder to overcome.
And confidence slips. That's the big one. In a high-stakes environment, think luxury apparel, tech, automotive, hesitation is fatal. If a customer asks, does this integrate with my previous system? And the associate pauses for even 3 seconds.
The doubt creeps right in.
And the wallet closes.
There's another dimension to this that I think is often totally overlooked by headquarters. We assume that if corporate sends out an email or a PDF, everyone gets it. But the reality on the ground is, well, it's variable.
Inconsistency. It's the silent brand killer.
The report paints this vivid picture of the regional manager's nightmare. You visit 3 stores in the exact same district.
Store 1. The manager is a total superstar. They printed the PDF, they did an energetic morning huddle, everyone is hyped. They are selling the dream.
Right. Then store 2.
Yeah.
They're busy. They just skimmed the email. They know the new product exists, but they're only selling the absolute basics. It's blue, it fits well.
And store 3, they missed the memo entirely. They're completely winging it.
We usually talk about brand protection as a legal thing, right?
Yeah.
Trademarks, fighting knockoffs.
Yeah.
But you're arguing, or the source is arguing, that this operational inconsistency is actually a brand protection issue.
Absolutely. Especially for premium and luxury brands, the brand isn't just the logo on the door. The brand is the consistency of the experience. If I walk into your flagship store in Soho and get this white glove, expert level consultation, and then I walk into your store in Dallas and the associate barely knows the product name.
It devalues everything.
Exactly. It makes it feel cheap. Luxury is supposed to be effortless. Confusion is the exact opposite of luxury.
And in a highly globalized world, where your best customers travel constantly, that kind of disconnect is glaringly obvious.
Right.
So, okay, we've established the problem. The customer is faster than ever. The
Yeah.
training pipeline is way too slow. The result is lost margin and damaged brand equity. Now, I want to play devil's advocate for a second for the L&D teams listening.
Go ahead.
They aren't lazy.
Mhm.
They know how to build great training. The source makes a really clear distinction here. This is not a capability issue,
No, it's a capacity issue. It is fundamentally a volume problem.
a hidden bottleneck.
Look at the systemic pressures these teams are under. Carousel accounts are exploding. Brands are making more unique items, more limited variations than ever before.
And localization. You can't just blast one English PDF to Tokyo, Paris, and Sao Paulo. It needs translation. It needs cultural adaptation. That all takes time.
And the shelf life of the content is shrinking dramatically. You used to create a giant sales Bible that lasted a whole year. Now, training content is virtually disposable. It's relevant for 6 weeks, and then the product is gone.
Plus, the baseline expectation for quality has gone way up.
Yeah.
You can't just give Gen Z associates a dense text document. They expect video. They expect interactive, mobile-first modules.
So the math is just brutal. More products, plus less time, plus higher quality standards, all running through the exact same manual production process.
It's a total recipe for burnout in the L&D department and ignorance on the sales floor. The product innovation team is running a sprint, and the training team is basically running a marathon with a backpack full of rocks.
That's a great way to visualize it. The system just wasn't built for this kind of cadence.
So for the executives listening who are suddenly realizing their current L&D model is broken, what is the fix? Because the source suggests we actually need to change what we measure.
We need a completely new metric.
We love our KPIs in retail. Sell-through, conversion, UPT units per transaction.
Those are vital, sure, but they are lagging indicators. They tell you what happened after the customer has already left the store. They're essentially autopsy reports.
The source proposes a leading indicator. Time to confidence.
I love this concept. Time to confidence. It tracks the exact duration between the product physically arriving in the store and the associate feeling genuinely confident enough to sell it effectively.
So we're not just measuring did they click complete on the module, but are they actually ready?
Right, because if the product arrives on Tuesday and the team isn't truly confident until Friday, your time to confidence is 3 days. You have just lost 3 days of peak launch opportunity.
The goal, obviously, is to drive that metric as close to zero as possible.
The ideal state is simultaneous arrival. The physical product hits the floor, and the knowledge hits the associate's device at the exact same moment.
Concise, bite-sized, field-ready. Not a 20-minute course in the back room, but a 2-minute burst of, hey, here's what you need to know right this second.
That shifts the dynamic entirely because suddenly you aren't just relying on the product to sell itself, you are actively arming your team to be the differentiator.
It seems so obvious when you say it out loud, but retail has been so hyper-focused on speed to market, logistics, that we entirely forgot about speed to knowledge.
We optimized the hardware and completely forgot the software. The associates are the software of the store. If they haven't downloaded the latest update, the hardware doesn't work.
Let's zoom out for a second because I want to touch on the why behind this bottleneck. Why have we allowed L&D to become the slow lane? Is it just a lack of budget or investment?
I think it's deeper than that. It's a fundamental misunderstanding of the role of L&D in a modern context. For a long time, training was seen purely as an onboarding activity. You hire someone, you train them for a week, they are done.
Set it and forget it.
Right. But in this new drop culture economy, training isn't an event anymore. It has to be a continuous stream. Think of it like a news feed.
Yeah.
If your news feed only updated once a month, you'd stop looking at it, right?
Totally.
Associates have stopped looking at the training because it's always stale.
That's a really sharp analogy. If the training is always telling me about the product that launched 3 weeks ago, I'm going to tune it out. I'm going to rely on my own research, or worse, I'm just going to guess.
And that guessing is exactly where the inconsistency we talked about earlier creeps back in. When you have 5,000 associates, all guessing what the brand's ingredient story is, you effectively have 5,000 different brands.
Which brings us right back to the financial impact. We talked about full price sell-through in the first 30 days. But what about the long-term impact on customer lifetime value?
Well, just think about your own behavior. If you go into a physical store and the person helping you clearly knows less than you do about the item you're holding, do you go back?
Probably not. Honestly, I'd just buy it online next time and skip the trip.
Exactly. The physical store is incredibly expensive to operate. You've got rent, labor, utilities. The only real reason for it to exist is to provide an experience and a level of service that you simply cannot get on a website. If the associate is just acting as a human search bar and a slow one at that way, the store totally loses its purpose.
So solving this time to confidence issue isn't just about juicing this week's sales figures. It's about justifying the very existence of the brick-and-mortar footprint.
It is existential. If you want to compete with the e-commerce giants, you can't out-logistics them. You have to out-service them. And you absolutely cannot out-service them if your frontline team is untrained.
So let's get tactical as we wrap up. If I'm an executive listening to this and I want to fix this bottleneck today, what does the ideal state actually look like in practice? We said simultaneous, but how do we get there?
It implies a massive move away from the traditional course mindset. We have to stop thinking in terms of these 45-minute e-learning modules with multiple choice quizzes at the end.
The dreaded click next to continue modules.
Exactly. The source suggests a hard shift toward microlearning and just-in-time resources. Think short video clips, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. Think digital flashcards. Think mobile-first content that lives directly on the device the associate already has in their pocket or right there on the POS system.
So instead of a manager saying, go to the back room and study, it's more like, hey, pull up this 60-second clip on the floor right before your shift starts.
Or even during the interaction itself. If a customer asks a really tough technical question, there should be no shame at all in the associate saying, you know what, let's look at the exact specs together, and pulling up a beautifully designed, brand-approved cheat sheet right there on the spot.
That completely turns the associate from a memorizer into a navigator. They don't have to memorize 5,000 different SKUs. They just need to know how to access the right info instantly.
And that is what bridges the gap. That is exactly how you solve the time to confidence problem. You reduce the burden of rote memorization and vastly increase the speed of access.
It sounds like we're really talking about empowering the front line rather than just training them.
That's the key distinction. Training is something you do to someone. Empowerment is giving them the tools to succeed on their own. The bottleneck exists because we're currently trying to force-feed training through a tiny straw. We need to open the fire hose of information, but we have to make it drinkable.
Make it drinkable. I really like that. Because right now, it feels like field teams are drowning in data, but starving for actual insight.
That's the great paradox of the information age, isn't it?
It really is. So let's wrap this up with a clear takeaway for the audience. We started today with those launch day blues.
Right, the realization that the product wasn't actually the problem.
The real culprit is the speed of understanding. If your marketing is moving faster than your training, you are creating a massive friction point that costs you real money.
Retail performance in the next decade won't be defined by who has the slightly better sneaker or the better handbag. Technically speaking, everyone is making good product now. The playing field is pretty level.
So the real advantage is organizational intelligence.
It's organizational learning speed. How quickly can your entire global fleet absorb, retain, and then articulate the new value proposition to a highly educated customer?
Before we sign off, I know you have a final thought for us. A little something to keep the C-suite awake at night.
I do. And this one is a direct comparison between your customer and your employee. I want every executive listening to look at their next major launch and ask themselves, if your customer can learn everything about your new product in 5 minutes on their phone while standing in line for coffee, why does it take your internal team 5 weeks to produce the training to teach them?
5 minutes versus 5 weeks. That is exactly the gap where you lose the sale.
And it's a gap you simply can't afford to ignore anymore.
Compelling stuff. Definitely something to bring up at the next Monday morning operations meeting. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the hidden mechanics of product knowledge.
Thanks for having me. This was a great conversation.
We'll catch you all in the next one.